You are welcome to yet another episode of HN What's Your Say? The #1 listening show, where we discuss real issues with real people like you. We are still featuring R. Kelly. Real name Robert Sylvester Kelly. Also known as the R&B King. When we think about the American dream, we often picture the narrative we've been sold for generations: work hard, use your talents, and no matter where you come from, you can make it. For most people, this is little more than a dream. But for a select few, especially in the world of entertainment and sports, the dream has felt like reality. For some of the most gifted among us, especially those born with the God-given ability to create music that moves nations, or to fight with a skill that can bring entire arenas to their feet, the dream has appeared within reach. For Black Americans, though, the road has never been a straight line. It's a rabbit hole. One that looks bright and promising at the start but often reveals itself to be filled with traps, dead ends, and carefully constructed obstacles. Yes, talent and fame can elevate a black child from the streets to a global stage, from poverty to mansions, from counting pennies to counting millions. But time and again, history shows us that no matter how high you rise, no matter how much you achieve, no matter how many records you break, the struggle never ends for Black people in this nation. And that is the story we see repeating itself over and over again, from Michael Jackson to Mike Tyson, and now to R. Kelly. When we celebrate the success of Black men who break through barriers, we often forget that their success does not erase the stigma of their skin color. Michael Jackson, arguably the greatest entertainer the world has ever known, won 13 Grammys, 8 of them in a single night. He changed music forever. He broke racial barriers on MTV, and he became a global icon whose influence remains unmatched. But despite all of this, when his moment of reckoning came, when accusations and controversy surrounded him, the very same system that celebrated him turned on him. He was no longer the king of pop. He was reduced to another black man accused, shamed, and dragged through the courts of both law and public opinion. His legacy, though unshakable, was forever stained by a narrative that overshadowed his music and his humanity. Then there is Mike Tyson, the youngest heavyweight boxing champion in history. A man whose raw power and skill made him a global sensation. Tyson was not just an athlete. He was a cultural force. But in the blink of an eye, all of that came crashing down. He was convicted of rape in circumstances that remain controversial and difficult to understand even to this day. The conviction stuck, the time was served, but the bigger message was clear: no matter how high you climb, no matter how untouchable you may appear, there is always a way to bring a black man back down. And now we see this same cycle repeating itself with R. Kelly. Here is a man who rose from nothing, a kid from the south side of Chicago who battled dyslexia and poverty but used his gift of music to build an empire. A man who wrote and sang songs that defined decades, that inspired millions, that became the soundtrack of people's lives. A man who achieved wealth, fame, and success beyond what most could even dream of. R. Kelly was not just an artist. He was a phenomenon. His net worth once soared into the hundreds of millions, his influence undeniable, his place in music history secure. And yet, here we are, watching the same pattern unfold. Because in America, for a black man, wealth and fame do not mean freedom. They do not mean protection. They do not mean acceptance into the halls of true privilege. They mean you are tolerated while you are useful, celebrated while you are profitable, and discarded the moment you are no longer convenient. And please remember, R. Kelly's case is not just about one man. It is about a system that has time and time again built up black men only to tear them down. A system that allows a young black boy to dream through music, sports, or entertainment, the only few channels available, but then reminds him harshly and publicly that he will never be safe from its grip. When we look at R. Kelly's downfall, we cannot ignore the bigger picture. We cannot pretend that this is just about guilt or innocence, about crimes or charges. Because even before a jury spoke, even before a verdict was delivered, the narrative was already written. He was already guilty in the court of public opinion. He was already guilty in the eyes of a media that thrives on sensationalism, and in the eyes of a society that loves to see a black man fall. Let's not forget, this is the same media that elevated him to superstardom. The same industry that profited off his music, that sold his records, that booked his tours and that filled their pockets while he filled stadiums. But when the tide turned, when it became more profitable to vilify him than to celebrate him, they flipped the script without hesitation. And this is where the reality hits hardest. No matter how far you run from the struggle, no matter how many Grammys you win, no matter how much money you make, the truth is, for a black man in America, it is always a house of cards. Think about it. How many times must we watch this story repeat itself before we admit it's a pattern? How many successful black men must fall under mysterious, controversial or questionable circumstances before we realize that success does not equal safety for us? Michael Jackson, Mike Tyson, R. Kelly. The list goes on. Bill Cosby, O.J. Simpson, Wesley Snipes. The names change, the industries differ, but the theme remains the same. Build them up, make them rich, make them famous, and then watch them fall. And it is not just about individuals. It is about what their downfall represents. When a black child sees his hero, his role model, or his success story stripped of dignity, locked away or dragged through years of accusations, what message does that send? It sends the message that no matter how hard you try, no matter how high you climb, you can never outrun the stigma of being black in America. R. Kelly is not perfect. No man is. But the way his case has been handled, the way his story has been shaped, the way his name has been dragged through the mud is proof that this is bigger than him. It is proof that the struggle never truly ends. We must ask ourselves, why is it that black men who rise to the pinnacle of success are so often brought down in ways that feel orchestrated, exaggerated, or manipulated? Why is it that the system is always ready to remind them that they are still black, still disposable, still vulnerable to being stripped of everything they built? And here's the hardest truth of all: this is not about guilt or innocence. This is about power. This is about control. This is about ensuring that no matter how high a black man rises, he never forgets who holds the keys to the system. So when we look at R. Kelly, when we hear his name, when we discuss his case, we must not reduce it to headlines or talking points. We must see it for what it is, another chapter in a long history of America reminding successful black men that they will never be truly free, never be truly safe, and never be truly equal to their oppressor. This is why defending R. Kelly is not just about him alone. It is about defending the principle that black success should not automatically carry with it a countdown to destruction. It is about demanding fairness, about challenging the narrative, about asking the questions that others are too afraid to ask. Because if history has taught us anything, it is that if they can do it to R. Kelly, they can do it to any one of us. And that is the rabbit hole we live in. A rabbit hole where talent can make you rich, where fame can make you powerful, but where none of it can protect you from the reality that in America, black men are allowed to succeed only for as long as it serves the system. So when you hear R. Kelly's name, don't just think of the headlines. Don't just think of the accusations. Think of the bigger picture. Think of Michael Jackson. Think of Mike Tyson. Think of all the others who thought they had finally made it only to later realize that for a black man in America, the game was rigged from the start. And then ask yourself, how many more will it take before we finally see the truth? That is all we had for you today on HN What's Your Say? To keep updated whenever we post a new video, subscribe to this channel now. Also remember to hit the bell icon and enable notifications. And feel free to share your opinions with us in the comment section below, and let us know if you would like us to publish your views in our next release. We value all our subscribers' opinions.